So imagine getting arrested over the weekend and then first thing Monday morning, you have to get ready for a job that you don't know whether or not you're going to get fired by the end of that day. Or you don't know whether or not you're going to have some type of adverse employment action that is taken against you because you were arrested or because you have a pending criminal case. I am criminal defense attorney Hannah Akintoye, and I know that the number one thing that a lot of people worry about if they have a pending criminal case is whether or not their employer is going to fire them or whether or not they get to keep their job. Some other people may worry about being suspended or being taken off the schedule from your job. And these are all things that you have every right to worry about because, there are people who have bills to pay. How do you support yourself? How do you support your family? Maybe you have a rent or mortgage that you have to pay. Maybe you have a car note that you have to pay. Maybe you have to take care of your children's activities, and all of these things cost money. How are you going to be able to afford it if you don't have a job that you're able to work, on top of maybe having to pay for legal fees for a criminal case? So all of these worries are completely understandable and they are all completely normal. Usually I tell people that there are three things to consider when assessing and understanding how your job is going to react to you having a pending criminal case or criminal charges, or just being arrested over a night or a weekend. So number one, the first thing to consider is, does your job or does your employer require that you report to them every single time you get charged or you have a pending criminal case? There are some jobs that require this as a condition of employment. Now, if that is the situation for you, you will want to make sure that you have the narrative in a way that favors you. So you say the narrative or you state the facts of what happened, or you make that report in a way that favors you. So that's really important to consider, because if you're the first person who's telling your employer, you control that narrative. So if you're controlling the narrative, control it in a way that favors you. So number two, the second thing to consider when understanding how your employer is going to react to your criminal case is whether or not your job requires regular background checks. There are some employers that do this and they tell you that they're going to do this in the employment contract that you sign. So if you have an opportunity and you still have access to those employment contracts that you may have signed before you got your job, look at whether or not you automatically give your employer permission to run background checks on you regularly. Some employers do it regularly. Some employers may do it occasionally or randomly. Also understand whether or not your job or your employer is going to run regular background checks. And then if you do know when those background checks are going to occur, again, you want to control the narrative such that they understand from your point of view what happened, and then they're not formulating ideas or opinions in their head about what could have happened, or maybe it being more severe or serious than it really is. So number three, you want to look into whether or not your particular job or your particular profession requires that you have a clear criminal record in order to effectuate the duties of that particular job. There are not that many jobs that require that. And I'll even tell you, for instance, with the legal profession, there are people who have criminal records that are still able to practice law. And so if your job is not as regulated or scrutinized as the legal profession, then you may want to look into whether or not there are ways for you to still keep your job or still practicing your profession, even if you have a pending criminal case. Another thing that will be important is an advocate that can explain to maybe your job or to your employer, your boss, that the charges or the case that you may have may not be as serious as they may be thinking. For instance, I had a client who was charged with a felony crime. And this is a crime that could have probably be considered serious or a violent crime. But I was also able to explain to that particular employer my client's mitigating factors to show them that although the charge was serious, my client's conduct was not serious. And so I was able to take a situation where my client was almost essentially fired or taken off the schedule or suspended. I was able to help them get reinstated into their particular job because I was able and willing to speak with that particular employer and just explain a little bit more about what their worries or their concerns or their fears are. Employers have requirements to have clean criminal records because they may not be fully educated on how a person's conduct can actually differ from the severity of the charges. There are lots of situations where people are overcharged when maybe they're charged with a felony. They could have been or they should have been charged with a misdemeanor. So explaining some of these things to the employer could be helpful in ensuring that you keep your job. And if you have an advocate, if you have an attorney that's willing to talk to your job or to your employer, to your boss, then having that type of backing is always going to be essential, critical, and important. Because for me, I want to see you win. I don't want to just see you win in the criminal case, but I want to see you win in your personal life and in your professional life. And if you lose there, then what's the essence of winning in a criminal case? If there's one thing that I want to explain to you, just make sure that you have the right support system around you so that they are able to help you in all the other areas and aspects and avenues of your life as you are navigating through a criminal case. If you have any questions for me, I'm always happy to answer them. You can reach me here or on my website, mydclaw.com, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have for me. I hope you guys stay safe, and I will see you all soon.